Not far away from Ntokozo's position in the parliamentary precinct in Cape Town. Aldrin, again, a big moment for South Africa in the way that this budget is defined. A great deal of demands. We keep hearing the words balancing act. And I think one of the conversation pieces was around that 2018 moment where we raised VAT by 1% to 15%. We heard recently from SARS Commissioner Edward Kieswetter that it didn't result in a notable increase in revenue. So as a way of sort of allaying the fears that people might have that the VAT route and raising VAT might be the easiest and lowest hanging fruit for the minister to go after.
Yeah, and you'd remember when Malusi Gigaba made that announcement when he was finance minister, he said that we're going to be all right, according to the urban poet that he quoted, Kendrick Lamar. And I was saying a bit earlier on to Naledi, if you take into consideration Kendrick Lamar's performance at the Super Bowl, perhaps maybe that could have been a hint of a possible VAT increase. But that's the conversation that's still going on. We are waiting on the finance minister to make that final decision and the announcement later on today when he delivers his budget speech, whether or not we are going to see an increase in VAT. But a person who has more expertise around this is Ruben Johannes, who is from Deloitte Africa. He's a tax director, to speak to us about these. So the conversation has been ongoing. Very good afternoon to you. Ongoing, whether we increase VAT, we don't increase VAT. Do we target wealth tax? Do we not target wealth tax? Do we target corporate tax? Do we not target a corporate tax? But where will all the money be coming from that the fiscus actually needs?
So good morning. So you're quite right. There's a lot of talk at the moment around whether there will be increases in the main corporate tax rate or in the VAT rate. I don't foresee that happening. So I don't see, and I guess I hope more than anything that there isn't an increase in the VAT rate. So at 15%, there is perhaps scope for a slight increase, but I don't see that happening. If it were to happen, I think there may also be, what may come with that is that there will be an increase in the basket of zero-rated goods, so certain foodstuffs on which there will then be no VAT. I don't see the corporate tax rate moving from 27%. On the individual side, what I think will happen is there will be no inflationary adjustments for the individual tax brackets, and that will result in bracket creep and ultimately in additional taxes. So I think that is where the bulk of any additional taxes will come from. We have introduced global minimum tax at the end of last year, and it was anticipated or forecast in last year's budget speech that could result in an additional 8 billion rand in revenues for 25-26 or rather 26-27. But other than that, perhaps carbon tax also there may be some scope there, but other than that, I don't see significant increases in taxes.
Yeah, but would that be enough if you take money from carbon tax, for instance, or even the sugar tax that we've been speaking about as well?
Yeah, so I guess it's never enough. It's a pie and the minister's got to split it some way, right? So our tax revenue collections stand at about 2 trillion rand. So our revenue that we bring in, and the question and the balance and the challenge for the minister is always how does he split that? How does he manage that? So there's been talk about the national health insurance. There's been talks about a need for increased investment in infrastructure. So currently our infrastructure investment sits at 15% of GDP, whereas in terms of the National Development Plan, we're targeting 30% of GDP. So certainly there are a lot of competing priorities, but the pie is only so big, and I don't think increasing taxes further will have the intended impact. It could in fact have an adverse impact.
Yeah, and you speak about the debate around the NHI, and on the other end as well, there's been the debate about the Bella Act, which is now an act, of course. But around some of the programs that are within the Bella Act and the policies, for instance, making ECD, early childhood development, mandatory. But where does the money for that come from when you have an education department, a basic education department, that is already suffering, considering once again that you have teachers' jobs being cut, you don't have the proper infrastructure in some of these schools, and some of these schools not even meeting the minimum norms and standards?
Yeah, no, so you're quite right. And again, it is a difficult job for the minister in trying to balance these competing priorities, as you say. Already 60% of our budget goes towards the social wage bill. So that includes education and health as an example. If you look at our matric pass rates last year, those were impressive. But the real question is how employable are those individuals once they leave school? And the answer is not very. And we sit with a high unemployment rate. And so further investment is certainly needed, certainly within our youth. And that's also been mentioned during the State of the Nation address by the President, is we need to develop our youth get, as Team South Africa, get those players off the bench and into the team, as it were.
Yeah. Another issue that has been mooted by the Reserve Bank, by the SARS Commissioner, Edward Kiswete, and my colleague now, Iman, just made reference to him also being against potential tax increase and saying that, listen, the experience of that announcement of that the 14 to 15% tax hikes hasn't really given us the type of money that we require. However, though, his argument is that rather pumping more money into SARS makes sure that SARS becomes more efficient, and its ability to then to collect more money would then be able to plug the hole. Why is it difficult then to get to that point, to get to the billions of rands that SARS is actually saying it needs, considering once again that SARS have been making record high collections?
Yeah. So SARS remains one of our better run state-owned organs of state. It remains a force that is able to go out there and collect taxes. Again, during the State of the Nation address, the President mentioned how SARS is, for instance, using artificial intelligence and how the use of that sort of technology has resulted in SARS preventing impermissible refunds of some 95 billion rand, and also used to collect an additional 20 billion rand in taxes. And so that is something that the Commissioner has always prioritized, the digital transformation of SARS. Of course, it requires investment, but I think SARS has made good strides, and I think a lot of other state organs can learn from SARS in that regard.
Yeah, but why would it be difficult to just say, okay, Edward Kiswete, you say you want 3 billion, here's the 3 billion, and the 3 billion is going to result into more billions being collected?
So again, we come back to the same point that the pie is only so big, and it needs to be
make
cut
the pie bigger. Make the pie bigger by giving SARS the money that they require to collect more money.
I think the way you make the pie bigger, and this has been the long-term strategy of National Treasury, is to promote growth, so to enable jobs, to enable businesses to grow, and in that way I think you make the pie bigger, so to create more taxpayers, to build the economy in that way. I don't think just giving money to SARS and go and collect taxes is going to help you, because there is ultimately only so much tax that can be collected from the current taxpayers.
Is it known how much we're losing from illicit financial flows, more or less? Is there an estimate?
That number is not known to me, no.
That number is not known? Not
to me, at least, no.
Yeah. But it could potentially run into the billions?
For sure. I imagine it could, yes.
Yeah, okay then. So how do we deal with that, with the illicit financial flows?
Yeah, so you've seen, for instance, in the last couple of years, we were added to the grey list because of our inability to track financial flows, and so lots of development has happened there. I think SARS has improved the enforcement capacity insofar as illicit financial flows is concerned. That is certainly something that's been targeted. We've seen now recently there've also been a focus and a re-looking at the tax policy related to the taxing of alcohol beverages, and that partly has to do with trying to tackle the illicit and illegal alcohol trade.
Thank you so much for your time. Ruben Johannes is a tax director at Deloitte Africa on some of the expectations with regards to the announcement from the finance minister. But later on, he's not expecting any tax hikes, also considering the economic trajectory that the country is currently in. But we'll have